This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
From Philadelphia for Marion, from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. Hi, I'm Charlie Greenawalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome back.
Hello, Charlie.
Well, we're entering election season.
We are, definitely.
And things are heating up in Harrisburg. Are we going to have a 100% a full budget soon, Maura?
Oh, if I was a betting woman, I would say no.
Oh, really?
It does not seem to be going in any sort of positive direction still, so we'll see.
I haven't checked out if.
But you should ask some experts on that.
Does Hollywood Casino have a line on it? I don't know.
Oh, maybe because they do want to expand gambling. So you never know. You never know.
That's so true. Well, here to help us sort out events in Harrisburg, we're fortunate enough to have with us today Dave Sanko. Of course, Dave is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for the invite. Hello, how are you?
Well, it's so nice to have you back. Dave, I have to ask, in this day and age when people seem to be more disgruntled with the federal government, the national government in Washington, D.C., has this attitude trickled down and has it affected local government at all?
I don't think so, because I think the disgruntlement with both Washington and Harrisburg is a result of distance. And while the old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, that probably is not true when it comes to your elected officials. That when they are absent from town and away in a town far away governing, the belief and the seemingly belief of the residents is that they've lost touch. They've lost touch with what's going on in their community, with what people can afford, and with what services they're interested in having provided. And I don't think you see that at the local level. At the local level, you know, residents can come to the local meeting and they can find you. They can air their grievances. Their grievances are addressed. It's not you know, they're addressed because it's the right thing to do, because you can't escape it. And I think that's why the disgruntlement is not at the local level. And I think you see that in the electoral process. I mean, we'll see a lot of media coverage about the anger between the parties, both in Washington and in Harrisburg. And at the local level, you really don't see that, because you see community leaders working for the betterment of their communities, and they don't. Perhaps they know, maybe they don't, but they don't drive their decisions on the party label after their name.
You're more likely to run into your local official at the local watering hole or the grocery store, or they're just really in amongst everybody, so they're a little bit more approachable, and
Sure.
You can, as you said, air their grievances or compliment them. Mm-hmm. Let's think that happens.
I think there are thank yous that go on as well, but I think you'll hear from local officials all across Pennsylvania the number of times that people show up at a town meeting. Is if there's something big going on, they'll be there. But by and large, people are very happy with their local governments. In fact, Penn State tells us that 2/3 of all the residents have the most trust and confidence in their local government when given a choice between local, state, and federal.
Oh, those are good numbers.
You've contended that this off-year election perhaps is more important than any other one. Clearly, local government is the closest thing that our founding fathers were thinking of when they created this nation. Abraham Lincoln said that it's government by the people, for the people, and if in fact that's true, citizen participation is critical to the success of our government, especially as we go to the polls. Why do you think the off-year election is more critical than ever this time around?
I think, and you're nationally, you'll see a lot of media interest in national elections. You see a lot of media interest in large statewide elections. You don't see media interest in local elections, and those. I think that at the end of the day, those are the most important, because it is far more likely that a decision made in any township hall or local government building on any day of the week is going to impact any resident in that community sooner and more directly oftentimes than decisions that are made in Washington or Harrisburg.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that the local township officials are facing this year?
Well, I think,
Or in general, yeah.
I think one of the big challenges that local governments face this year and in the last couple of years are unfunded mandates. Rules and regulations that come from Harrisburg or Washington telling you what you have to do, when you have to do it, and in many instances, whether it makes sense for your community or not. Oh, and by the way, figure out how to pay for it too, because we're not going to do that.
Well, that really stinks.
So it makes it difficult, and there are some pretty egregious examples as you go across communities.
Well, you find there have been many instances where townships have risen up here in the Commonwealth, Dave, and they have tried to be creative with ways to use the residents' revenues more wisely and more effectively. Can you share with our viewers some of these experiments that are being conducted now by the various townships to try to make their resources go further?
Sure. I think, at the end of the day, folks in local government start off their budgeting process with what they need to do, not what they necessarily like to do, and then figure out whether you can afford to do that. And sometimes you can in your own community, and sometimes you want to turn to a cooperative venture with a neighboring community. So there are communities who will, one community will buy a lawnmower, and another community will buy a snowplow truck. And then the guy with the lawnmower will cut the grass, and the guy with the snowplow truck will plow the roads in their different communities. But it goes beyond that. I mean, there's a collection of communities in Luzerne County, in the northeastern part of the state, that are collectively banding together to address some of the stormwater mandates from the EPA. In the Center County area, communities are banding together to do a regional recycling solution. In the northwestern part of the state, they've banded together and are doing a cooperative emergency health ambulance service. Again, recognizing that everybody can't afford to do everything. In Beaver County, the communities have banded together and put together a health insurance cooperative for municipal employees. So there are examples in all corners of the Commonwealth.
Well, you just mentioned their budget process. How does the local government budget process differ, or how is it similar to what we're going through in the state level at this point?
Well, there's one really big compelling difference, and the local government budget has to be passed by December 31st of each year, and you don't have an option to not do that.
Really?
You can't be late. If you don't do it on January 1st, there is no authority to spend. Everything shuts down. Nothing's going to happen. There are no roads getting plowed. There may not be trash collected. There's a whole series of things that are just going to stop. So people have to make it work. Another big difference is that municipal governments will start off their budgeting process by saying, how much money do we have, and then figure out how to spend it. And while I'm sure it's nice to figure out what are all the things we'd like to do, and then pass a spending plan, and then later on figure out how to try to pay for it. Look, I'd like to do that too. I'd like to get to the end of the year with my personal budget and say, I want a new truck. Mm-hmm. But you know what? If I don't have the revenue or the money to afford a new truck, it's nice to want it, but you can't have it. So I think that one of the biggest differences between what we see at local government budgeting and state and federal government budgeting is that there is more reality, more common sense, more based on need and less based on wants and desires. And I get that there are, we struggle with mandates from Washington and Harrisburg. Harrisburg struggles with mandates from Washington. Washington doesn't struggle with mandates from anybody. But at the end of the day, the local budgeting process is more attuned to residents. You're not as quick to want to jump up and raise everybody's taxes because, as we said earlier, those folks, they come to your meeting and they're going to be there and they're going to talk to you about it.
How are the local governments impacted now by the budget impasse on the state level?
At the state level, they haven't been impacted by it. I mean, by and large,
Business as usual.
It's, well,
Yeah.
in part because the state doesn't fund a lot of, there's not a lot of money going to local governments.
Okay.
So when it stops, it
Doesn't make
it
any
doesn't
difference.
hurt
Yeah.
because there was, you know,
There aren't any mandates
somebody
coming
said
either.
when you take nothing from nothing, you have nothing.
Right. Oh.
Dave, I think we have about 2 minutes left in this segment. I was wondering, of all the statewide associations, yours has an enormous job. How many townships are there?
1,450.
1,450 townships. And how many township supervisors are there then?
Well, at least 3 per, so close to over 5,000.
Over 5,000. And part of the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, part of your mission is to educate all these folks. You have to help them comply with the laws. You have to help them answer to their residents, work with limited budgets. What else does the association do? How can you help? How do you try to help them most effectively?
Sure.
In
Well,
the last few minutes
we're
here?
pleased to try and help those community leaders provide quality government at affordable prices. And the one thing that they start off with that makes the whole learning process a lot easier is common sense. And that they go through that process. We'll do education classes all around the state. We have our annual conference where a whole bunch of folks will come to Hershey as the crown jewel. We've got staff who are available to help share best practices. We don't sit here saying we've got all the answers, but we know where the answers are, and we can share them with them. So sharing what happens in Greene County with the folks in Wayne County or Crawford County with the folks in Berks County. I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there in different parts of the Commonwealth. We share those between our website, our discussion group, our staff with phone calls, email. We're a magazine we publish monthly.
Which is, the name is?
The Pennsylvania Township News.
If you haven't seen that you want to take a look at that.
It's a tremendous resource, publishes monthly. Many libraries have it as a resource. And our job is to give those local officials the tools they need to provide affordable, effective service in their communities.
Well, Mara, imagine that. Common sense.
That's just crazy.
Mara and I
Crazy talk.
have talked in the past. We think sometimes it seems that there's more common sense at the local level, less at the state level,
Definitely.
very little at the federal level. So you're probably doing a good job, Dave. And we want to thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.